this is Tim, and I'm with my lifelong friend Randy and his trusty dog Scout. And today we're going to take a rock and roll walk through Laurel Canyon. We've picked a three-street loop: Stanley Hills, Appian Way, and Lookout Mountain. Randy, you grew up here, right?
Yes, I grew up here. I was here all through the 60s and to the early 70s.
What are some of the things we're hoping to see here?
Well, we're going to see some of the well-known artists from the 60s. We're going to see where the Doors lived, where Cass Elliot lived, Carole King, David Crosby, and many others. They all lived very, very close to each other.
Right, on the loop we're taking, what's this loop, maybe 2.5 miles?
Yeah, 2.5 miles.
Let's take it, let's go.
This is where Mama Cass moved to when she first came to LA. And she was just starting with the Mamas and Papas, and this was her little house.
Wasn't the big house that they had all the big gatherings with Clapton and all those people?
That was further on after she got some success. But this was her little cottage in the beginning. And this is where one day Michelle Phillips came in through the kitchen window, saw a huge mess with a big jar of mayonnaise dropped on the floor, and cleaned all that up, spent 3 hours cleaning up the kitchen, and then just left. Her story that she always liked to tell about this house.
It's a great story, man. A great Laurel Canyon story.
This is the house where Jerry Goffin lived.
Jerry Goffin, who of course was Carole King's husband for
years, and then I guess they split up and he moved down the street because they still had the girls together, and so they could stay part-time with their mom and part-time with him.
And they, of course, were in the Brill Building in New York and wrote One Fine Day and among other things, but that's one of my favorites. I believe they wrote Chains too, that the Beatles
we'll have
did.
To look up and see all the songs that they did.
Incredible.
This is where Carole King lived, and she was here in the late 60s, and right when she did her album Tapestry. This is where she lived, and they shot the cover of the album in this house.
In that window right there.
In that window right there.
Wow, pretty incredible.
Yeah, so we had a lot of very famous people in the music industry here.
I grew up with 4 sisters, so I heard that record a lot.
That is a beautiful record. What is so amazing is within, half a mile, quarter of a mile, you had John Sebastian, Cass Elliot, the drummers for the Turtles and the Byrds. So all of the groups were hanging out and within walking distance of each other. And I think the reason they moved all close to each other because they wanted to be near each other, and it helped them become creative.
It's easier to steal from people that are close to you.
Yeah. Much easier.
Right here's your favorite house.
Right here.
Okay.
In 1966, Denny Daughtery of the Mamas and Papas bought the house, and he moved in here, so all the Mamas and Papas would hang out here. He stayed here in 66, and until 1970, it started to be rented, and that's when Hal Ashby.
Hal Ashby, who's one of your personal favorites.
Yeah,
I happen to know this. So.
He is my favorite.
Yeah.
And he was a beautiful person.
Yeah. But when he was living here, he did Harold and Maude.
No, this is where Harold and Maude was edited.
In the house.
In the house.
In the house.
He lived here.
He lived here and edited Harold and Maude here, which I think is really great. That was Cat Stevens' soundtrack.
Yes. And Cat Stevens did all the music.
And it's like, if you've never seen it, it's a movie that you really do have to see because it's one of the essential 25 movies ever made.
Yes.
In my humble
And one side note, that when Cat Stevens did all the music, it was just a rough cut.
Yeah.
And he's told Hal, no, it's not done yet, and I have to fix it. And Hal just took it and put it all in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so unrehearsed in it.
And that's why this guy, Hal Ashby, is on our rock and roll tour for just what you just said. He, as a musician or any kind of artist, I mean, I think the hardest thing to do is know when something's finished. We tend to turn stuff into mud, like maybe I'm doing to this, but
No, but
yeah.
there's another rock and roll side note, because after Hal left, or 1971, the Rolling Stones moved in. They filmed one of their movies here. They filmed a movie.
Cocksucker Blues, right?
Cocksucker Blues was filmed
It was like more of a tour movie, but they stayed here and they did some filming here when they were
Yes.
doing. Did Hal Ashby do that movie?
I don't know.
Yeah,
But he
I
did
guess
their
that-
later movie.
Yeah.
They did a tour movie in the 80s that he shot.
No,
So-
but I did know this was a rental in the 70s, and the Stones were one of the ones that rented. And then most recently, this house has a rock and roll pedigree because Marilyn Manson lived here.
Yes, Marilyn lived here.
That house has got a lot of history.
This is one of the most famous houses in the
I'll
world.
tell you what, man, it's got a lot of cool history too.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff.
Lot of good energy.
A lot of good energy went on there. Well, Cocksucker Blues, not sure about that, but
I've never seen
I've seen it before. I've saw it at the movie theater. They used to only be able to show it once a year or some through some contractual stuff. You know, it was supposed to be so, risque and everything. And it's like, it's like hanging out
No,
with
it's
a band for a couple nights,
But I mean, do you think if you can't
I didn't
remember
see
the
any
house,
cocksucking in it, let's put it that way. So we're at Appian Way. Right there is Sunset Plaza if you go that way, where this person's going. And this is at the very top of Lookout Mountain right here, which Lookout Mountain is probably one of the two most famous streets here in Laurel Canyon.